The old adage is you can't grade a draft until 5 years. Well, it's been 5 years since the 2018 draft. So we're going to go back, look at the Sharks picks, look at what we can learn from those, and make some hindsight is 2020 picks on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now and Inside the Rink. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can subscribe on YouTube as well. And we're going to be digging into the 2018 draft class, which is now officially been 5 years. Fun fact, I started covering the Sharks for Fear the Fin right before the 2018 draft. So this is, it's kind of a special draft class for me because of, it's when I started this whole process and this whole journey. So we're going to be looking at, of course, Ryan Merkley. We're going to be looking at Linus Karlsson, Jasper Weatherby, Zachary Émond, and John Leonard, and kind of look at what happened and what went wrong, since none of these players are still in the Sharks pipeline as of now. So before we get into that, I do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. So this 2018 draft class, which there was a lot of promise and about some of these players, especially Ryan Merkley at the top of the draft, right? Ryan Merkley was perceived as a top 10 talent. Attitude issues and, of course, his size pushed him down to where the Sharks got him at pick 21. And with a lot of these picks, like especially these, Carlson in the third round, Weatherby, and Iman and Leonard in the back end of the draft. Looking back, a lot of these picks weren't bad picks. It's just what happened after they got picked and leading them to be, now none of them, like I said, are with the organization anymore. Whether it's through trades, actually all of them were traded at some point, and kind of looking at what happened to these players and what you can learn from going forward, as we are now officially in the Sharks rebuild compared to when the Sharks were, when all these players were picked, the Sharks were we are trying to win a Stanley Cup soon type of moves. So let's start with the Merkley window, Ryan Merkley. So Merkley, of course, was the 21st overall pick in the draft that year in the first round. This past season, with the Barracuda and the Eagles, he played 58 games, had 2 goals, 20 assists, 102 shots on goal. Was traded midway through the season. Basically said, "I'm done with the Sharks organization." Requested a trade. There was a pretty famous, kind of incident on ice where he was benched in the game. Didn't seem to, have trust or confidence in the front office. And Ryan Merkley was then traded as part of a trade that brought Martin Kaut over, and Jacob McDonald was sent to the Colorado Avalanche, where he played the rest of the season with the Eagles. Actually scored more points with the Sharks, with the Barracuda. But anyway, and then was not given a qualifying offer and is actually a free agent. And as we're recording this on day 4 of free agency, has not gotten signed anywhere yet. So Merkley, interesting enough he was one of those, if he's going to play in the NHL, he's going to be a star type of player. Looking at Byron Bader's draft model, and players like Merkley who score a ton of points typically produce at least through their draft process, typically produce and become star type of players, especially, once he got traded. He got traded 3 times in his juniors. Got traded from the Sharks. Like, the red flags are there, right? It's easy for it now to look back and, and look back and see what happened. But, he's with these small defensemen, they're either great in the NHL or they never make it. And it feels like Ryan Merkley is just going to be he never made it type of guy. So what can we learn from Ryan Merkley and going forward, right? I think the big red flag, right, was the attitude. You heard about that in the whole draft process. Incredible talent, terrible attitude. And that's just how some guys are, right? Again, when you're traded 3 times in the CHL, it's usually a red flag type of things. Yes, players get traded. Sometimes it's for, their team is bad. They're trying to get some assets, stuff like that. But, was benched several times in CHL. Basically wanted forced his way to get to the London Knights, who are always a powerhouse type of team. And then, with his development, I think with him particularly, I think the yo-yoing between, I don't think there was a clear path for him going, in the AHL, and that could be a developmental thing. I don't, that the Sharks, I think, have really tried to work on, especially with Mike Greer, of, kind of being clear and patient with these guys, right? He got yo-yoed between the AHL and the NHL, where he probably should have been playing bulk AHL minutes, especially during COVID, right? There was issues with the rosters, and if you remember all the fun stuff there with having like the little bubble, squad, or the taxi squad, all that fun stuff. But I think though for Merkley, going back, if you had to redo it, kind of redo the development, I think being clear with him of being like, okay, you're going to spend the next 2 years in the AHL, but we want you to do X, Y, and Z type of thing. And once you do that and can do it on a consistent basis, then we can bring you up in the NHL and let you, kind of work your way into it. And a guy like Merkley needs to be, one of those top 3 defensemen where he's going to be running a power play. He's going to be doing, like kind of offensive stuff. And I don't think the Sharks put him in the best position to succeed. Merkley, of course, didn't help himself with his attitude, his work ethic, all that fun stuff. But, I think when prospects bust, and I think it's safe to say Ryan Merkley is going to be a bust at this point. It's usually a combination of both parties of not putting the player in position to succeed. And then for a guy like Merkley, him, like I said, his attitude, you would think that being traded and, not making the NHL as quickly and having some of the other defensive prospects kind of leap over him, not getting to go to Europe instead of like Nick Cicek win, like having seen some of these other prospects kind of leapfrog him, I think should have been some wake up signs for him. But I digress from that. So we've spent plenty of time talking about Ryan Merkley. There's plenty of, I did a whole episode. I've done plenty of episodes on Ryan Merkley. But if we're playing the hindsight is 2020 draft, so what I'll do for every pick is I will go back and make another pick, knowing what we know now. And this one's really easy for Ryan Merkley, right? Of course, the pick after Ryan Merkley was one K'Andre Miller for the Rangers, and he's been an excellent NHL player. He's about ready to probably get paid here really soon. So he's played 214 NHL games compared to Ryan Merkley's 39. He's 21 goals, 54 assists, 75 points during that time. Ryan Merkley has a goal, 5 assists, and 6 points in 39 games. So K'Andre Miller, excellent defender, excellent, and if you could go back in time, that would be the hindsight is 2020 pick for the Sharks. So imagine having K'Andre Miller in your top 4 right now. You'd be a much different team. So before we continue, we're going to look at Linus Carlsson and Jasper Weatherby, and then we'll end with Zachary Émond and John Leonard. Need to take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. And I know right now baseball is the king, especially because we're kind of waiting for all the other fall sports to start here in July, August, and September. But right now, if you want to take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel, you get 10 times your bet amount in bonus bets. That's up to $200. That's right. Bet $20 and you land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line, over, under, or who you think is going to hit a home run. I always like the home run props, right? Ohtani, Judge, kind of picking those guys because it's fun to watch superstars do superstar things. So laying a little wood on those guys, and then you just get to root for awesome players doing awesome things. So, and you can do this all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so two interesting players here that the Sharks picked, Linus Carlson and Jasper Weatherby. So we'll start with one Linus Karlsson. So Carlson was picked. I'm trying to get my slides together. Carlson was picked in the 2018 draft at third round, 87th overall. He was eventually traded for Jonathan Dahlen, who of course played for one season with the Sharks, and then Mike Grier didn't give him a contract and is happily back in Sweden now, just being awesome over there. So Linus Carlson, though, has really kind of put himself in a position. I think he will be making his NHL debut for the Canucks next season. In 72 games last year in the AHL for the Canucks, he had 24 goals, 25 assists with 170 shots on goal. Carlson, has been a little bit of a, I don't want to say slow, but they've been taking their time with him. He's been playing over in Sweden, basically since he's been drafted, and had, playing at Allsvenskan. This last year in Allsvenskan, he had 46 points in 52 games. And really, looks like he's ready to contribute, at least offensively, for the Canucks going forward. Looking at his kind of development card. So he, has really kind of improved his NHL probabilities. I don't think he's ever going to be a star producer for him, but I think Linus Carlson could be a solid middle six player for the Canucks who could, maybe he's shipping in 15, 20 goals on a career year for them. So what do we learn from this pick? Be patient, I think, is the key thing here, right? Is being patient. And I get the move, right? Jonathan Dahlen, your ooze talent, was in a bad situation in Vancouver. And I think the Sharks, they did right by letting Dahlin kind of develop at his own pace. He came over and he was a contributor for the Sharks before he got injured. And then once he got injured and then Mike Grier came into town, things didn't really kind of fit for Dahlin. So I get it. The Sharks were trying to add, a talent who they thought could make the NHL sooner. Jonathan Dahlen did make the NHL sooner, 2 years sooner than Linus Carlson. But I think in the long run, Linus Carlson is going to be a better prospect for the Canucks than Jonathan Dahlen was. And, Dahlen, it's frustrating because Dahlin, you could see it, right? You could see the flashes. And if you look at, the first half of the season before his concussion, or I think it was a concussion or he hurt his shoulder or whatever, it was an upper body injury. Before that, you could see it. He was a dark horse Calder candidate, and it's just unfortunate he never got another chance really to kind of reestablish himself as that type of player. So I think that's the big thing for the Sharks is kind of learning that patience. And, I think if Carlson was on the Sharks, Linus Carlson, I think he would have played NHL games last year, and I think he'd be fighting for an NHL job on the Sharks this year. So, but we're going to continue to play the hindsight is 2020 game and look at who I would draft knowing what we know now. And I think you'd have to go with fourth round pick, Joel Hofer, goalie who was picked by the St. Louis Blues. He made his debut in 21-22 in the NHL, and he's played 8 NHL games with, okay results. But in AHL, he's really kind of solidified himself. Last year in 47 games with the Springfield Thunderbirds, he had a .921 save percentage and 2.5 goals against. Even the year before in 39 games, he had a .905 save percentage with 296 goals against. And he's really kind of didn't have a great playoffs this last season, but he's really going to be fighting. He's going to be ready, I think, to take that kind of backup NHL job type of position. And if he was in the Sharks organization, he would clearly be their best goalie prospect right now. So again, that's my hindsight is 2020 pick so Linus Carlson's still a great pick or a good pick. But Joel Hofer, I think, having a goalie who could be an NHL goalie for you the next few years, I think that's where you would lean right now. So next, of course, is Lord Jasper, who just got signed by the Nashville Predators, so he'll probably be playing with the Milwaukee Admirals this season. So he, of course, was the Sharks' 102nd pick overall in the 4th round. I should say that. Let's just say Admirals, not Canucks. My bad. If you're watching on the old YouTube here. So 70 games this year, not Admirals, between the Grand Rapids and the Barracuda. In 70 games, he had 6 goals, 11 assists, with 128 shots on goal. And, with him, he's always been kind of that, feels like he's going to be an NHL, AHL type of tweener. If he's your 4th line center type of player, that's kind of where Jasper Weatherby is going to be. And I think that's kind of the career he's had. After a very successful rookie season for the Sharks, remember where he signed early, he was going to go back to North Dakota State, but he signed early to go play professional hockey. But he's going to go back to North Dakota State, be the captain, all that fun stuff. Sharks lured him into, kind of forego his senior season and come play. Made the Sharks right out of training camp. He was the 4th line center, scored, and had some mixed results that season, but you could see some promising results from him going forward. But last year really struggled, I think, with his confidence, and was quickly passed by a lot of the other prospects. Right, struggled the Barracuda just to get he was, instead of being an everyday player, was, like I've said, one of those every other day players where he was healthy scratched a lot, would come in, and I think struggling with that confidence. When he went to Grand Rapids, I think he found his game a little bit more. So, but he's going to be playing for Nashville now. Good, I think he's going to have a chance to kind of help the Milwaukee Admirals, who always seem to be a pretty solid team, and wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of yo-yoing between the Admirals and the Preds this season as a kind of bottom line guy, or if he just becomes a career AHL guy. Like, that's still a solid career going forward. So I still think what we learned from this is maybe being a little bit more patient with the guy. Kind of the same thing with Carlson. I know there's a lot of these guys last season for the Barracuda. You look at your Coes, you look at your Weisblatts, you look at your Weatherbys, where they couldn't really earn that everyday type of ice time. And, it's tough for these guys where you're kind of in and out of the lineup, and maybe giving them a little bit more run type of would be the way to go. But I think the Weatherby is probably going to be one of those kind of tweener type of guys going forward. So playing the 2020 hindsight pick, this one's pretty easy. I'm going with Igor Sarangovich. Sorry, excuse me. Please don't get mad at me, Devils fans. He was the 5th round pick in 141 overall by New Jersey. He's already played 205 NHL games, 53 goals, 53 assists, 106 points. Was considered apparently part of the Sharks, the package with a team admirer, but I think Sarangovich would clearly be the choice there for a 4th round pick. Going forward, to have a guy who's already scored 100 points in the NHL in 200 games. So very much a steal for the Devils right there. So before we continue and we look at Zachary Iman and John Leonard, do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Again, proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you got to do, just follow along wherever you get podcasts. Of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. This week, of course, we have more. We're going to start getting some more news out of development camp. I'm going to probably talk about that. We have the prospect scrimmage game on Thursday that we're hoping to stream. I haven't heard anything yet, which worries me a little bit that I won't be streamed. But if not, we will come up with some other stuff to talk about going forward. And of course, we can start digging into some of these draft prospects and what the Sharks are getting out of them. So just make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And all right, we have Zachary Émond, who was the next pick by the Sharks. So Émond, a goalie that they picked out of the QMJHL. 176 overall, 6th-round pick. Played 4 games for the ECHL Thunder last year. 936 save percentage, 222 goals against, had 132 saves. But again, he played 4 games last season in a calendar year. Had a chance, but it feels like Zachary Émond is probably done at this point. I know he just got, so he was he was the last man standing in this draft class, which is kind of funny enough. Was part of the Timo Meier trade, of course, trying to make some contracts. The Devils did not qualify offer him, and I believe he signed an AHL deal with the Rockets, part of the Montreal organization. So goalies are tough, man, and I do not trust the Sharks goalie development right now. So it kind of feels like they're just being led kind of lambs to slaughter here. So I think going forward, it's for the Sharks, at least with their goalies, is trying to come, because it feels like they picked small goalies, they picked up short goalies, like trying to kind of figure out what you want in a goalie and try to stick to that, right? Finding that goalie that you feel like you can develop and whatever traits it is, right? If it's big, if it's short, if it's, athletic, if it's technical, whatever you are looking for, and try to stick to those traits instead of continuing to just throw stuff to the wall and see what sticks. And you feel bad for Émond because he was, he did get a bit of a shot, right? So, he got to play, but at the same time, he really did. He's played 12 AHL games, and of course, on a very, very bad Barracuda team at 21-22 season. Got to play some ECHL game, but he hasn't played more than 13 games in a season since the 2019-2020 when he was in the Q. He is really, he did play 23 games in 2020, 2021, but he was traded midway through the season. He just hasn't gotten enough development because he just hasn't been able to play games. That's a big thing with Barracuda, with goalies, right? Is the best way to get better is just to continue to play games. He just hasn't had a chance to do that. So I'm hoping he gets a chance here. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know what Montreal's ECHL looks like, but I think that would be him getting a bulk load of work, and that's just something he just has not had. So going, or looking back at the who would I pick, so remember, this is pick 176 out of 217. We're getting to the end here, but honestly, John Leonard, who we're going to talk about in here in a minute, he's still worth the pick in the 6th round of where you got him. So if I can't have Émond, I think you just gotta go with John Leonard. So who's already played a handful of he's already kind of carved out his role type of person. So my hindsight's 2020. I'm just going to go with John Leonard, who we're going to talk about right now. So John Leonard, of course, was picked 182, 6 picks later by the Sharks. He last year played for, I did it again. Played for Nashville for the Milwaukee Admirals. He had 67 games, 17 goals, 27 assists, 176 shots on goal. The former, UMass player, he's never going to have that star potential, but I think he's carved out himself as a potential kind of same thing with like John with Weatherby, right? Where he's going to probably be an AHL NHL tweener for his career, bouncing between the two, dominating the AHL, and then maybe just not enough talent or skill to make the NHL full time. He just signed with the Coyotes, where he's going to have plenty of opportunities with the Coyotes, right? That organization has plenty of holes that they're trying to fill. And I wouldn't be surprised if John Leonard is playing NHL games for the Coyotes next year. And I think John Leonard, he feels like one of those guys where he needs a little bit of time to kind of get his feet wet. But once he does, he kind of hits the ground running, right? We saw that with the Barracuda, where, it took him a couple of weeks to get into the groove, and then boom, he's off and running. And with the Sharks, unfortunately, he never got that time with one. There was a bubble season where he got hurt. And then his last season with the Sharks was hurt at the end of it. And never, it was just starting to get his feet wet, started to get going. And then he blocks the shot and gets hurt. Leonard, still a great pick, right? You're getting a player who's, if you wouldn't be surprised if John Leonard by the end of it plays 150, 200 NHL games in his career, just because he kind of continues to bounce forth, and he's, plays an Andrew Agozzino type of player, right? Is kind of the mold, I think, for John Leonard. That's a great pick in the 6th round. Like, that's still a really, really great pick in the 6th round. You look at, other guys around him are just not producing or not getting just not doing the same thing he's doing. With Leonard, I think what we learned again is, of course, he was part of the Luke Cunnin trade, where the Sharks traded John Leonard in the 3rd round pick to get Luke Cunnin as part of Mike Grier's overhaul of the roster. I like John Leonard a lot. I think he could still be part of, if he was with the Sharks, I think he would be, kind of one of those veteran guys on the AHL, helping out the team, and like I said, kind of, if you need someone to come in and play some NHL minutes for you, I think he could do that as well. So I still think, I think Leonard's going to have a long professional hockey career. So if you had to redo the pick, I've already picked John Leonard to keep him in the organization. I'm going to go with Trey Fix-Walensky from Columbus. And he's a guy who's, I think, going to make his he's already played like 15 NHL games. Really nice season last year with the Cleveland Monsters. Had 71 points in 61 games, including 29 goals. Short king, so I don't, we know that that wouldn't fly. But again, getting a guy in the 7th round who's probably going to be playing, 20, 30 games for the Blue Jackets next year. And again, is, a career tweener in the 7th round, like that's a great pick right there. So, So I think the big thing that we can learn from this 2018 draft class is, with these small defensemen like Ryan Merkley, right, we know they're either going to make it and they're going to be good in the NHL, or they're just not going to make it. And that shouldn't scare you away from picking players, in this year's draft, right? Luca Cagnoni is, a little bit smaller player, but again, you spent a 4th round pick on him, and you keep taking swings on these upside, because if they work, you're getting a great player. If it doesn't work, then, unfortunately, there's just that kind of no middle ground with some of these shorter defensemen. I think a lot of the other ones is, being patient with their development and making sure that you have a plan in place. And I think the Sharks and the Barracuda, that's something they've worked on, especially with the John McCarthy. Ever since Mike Grier has gotten here, the focus on development and making sure that all the prospects have a proper plan in place, right? Having John McCarthy as the head coach now, who's gone through the development, that's been his job, right? Is development, right? Getting Patrick Marleau now on board, and just being patient with these guys. And I think that is kind of some of the lessons that we've seen from Mike Grier already in a short period of time, right? William Eklund, right? He's played less than 18 games in the NHL. If William Eklund was part of the 2018 draft class, for example, I think Eklund would be pushing, closer to 100 NHL games in a type of situation where they're going to let him kind of play. But I think, though, for Eklund's development, he is going to come in next year, and I think he's going to be a very, very strong contributor in this. So probably in the long run, probably a little bit better for Ekman to play these AHL games and take it slow with him. And we're going to hopefully see that with some of these other prospects where took it very slow with them last year, let them get used to a new path, a new development program. And now the training wheels, I think, are going to start to come off with some of these guys. So anyway, that was fun to look back at the 2018 draft class. So we can do this again next year with the 2019 draft class, who is already shaping up to be well on its way of not being part of not having any more Sharks players on it. So especially with the Knyzhov trade now, yeah, it's been some of these drafts are starting to get a little rough for the Sharks. A little rough. I'll put up the 2019 draft class right now. Knyzhov gone. Hamonic, yeah. Everybody's gone except for Hamonic. So this 2019 draft class is woof. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow, so we'll come up with something. If it's prospects related, if it's anything exciting out of prospect scrimmage, whatever, we'll come up with something for tomorrow. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Until tomorrow. Bye, friends.